Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the City Chatter podcast. I'm your host, John Bernstrom, Public Information Officer for the City of Grand Forks. And this week, at the end of January, we have a couple representatives from public health. But when I say public health, a lot of people think of vaccines and nursing and stuff like that. No, there's two sides to public health. There's the environmental side, too, and we're going to get into the environmental side. Joining us, we have two members. First, Jake Anderson. Jake or Jacob? You're that one. Sorry, there we go.
I prefer Jake.
You prefer Jake? Yep. Good, because I wrote Jake on everything, and then I realized partway through, I'm like, oh, I hope he doesn't go by Jacob. And then also we have Javen Bedard. Javen?
Hello, John.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Now, Javen and I go back a little bit. We didn't know each other in high school, but we are from the same area of the very remote woods of northern Minnesota.
Small world.
God's country.
Small. Produced two of God's children. There we go. That's right. It did. The reason I have you guys in here is Radon Awareness Month, Radon Protection Month. What's the title of it?
Radon Awareness Month. Yep.
Radon Awareness Month. Okay, so I'm going to start with you, Jake. This is one we hear in the news a lot. I'm going to play dumb here. What is radon?
So radon is a colorless, odorless gas, it's radioactive gas that is produced when uranium decays. Long story short, uranium in the ground decays. So it produces a gas that seeps into your home. Long story short, there's a lot more to unpack there.
Okay. So then I'm going to send this one over to Javen. Radioactive, okay, radioactive gas. We're in the Northern Valley, not a ton of radio. Why is it prevalent in this part of the world?
Well, it's all throughout the upper Midwest. It's just in the soils in the ground. And so as that uranium decays, it spends about 3.8 days as a gaseous form of radon. And it can congregate in your basement, in your house, especially in this northern climate where we heat our homes. That heating of your home, hot air is less dense. And so it sucks that ground air into your home and concentrates that right in your home.
Fair to say that it's like a sump pump hole or something like that? You mentioned a basement, which are generally concrete. It needs a way to get in there.
Yep, cracks, sump pump holes, sealing those holes is important. But, radon reduction systems are highly, highly effective. We encourage everyone to test your home. See what your number is. Most of them in this area are 10s, teens, 20s, and we hear them go way up. And that's probably your number one exposure to radiation. It's really harmful too, because as you breathe it in, because it's gas, it's an alpha emitter, which doesn't travel very far or through a lot of things, but it's high energy, and that's going off right in your lungs. So it's very, very direct exposure. It's highly concerning to us. We want to get the awareness out there in the public and tell the stories. I've met the people in town who've said, I've spent a lot of time in my basement, never smoked a day in my life, and here I am with lung cancer. It's the number 2 cause of lung cancer.
So Jake is he talks about the numbers of the teens, 20s. What's a normal number for radon in a hole? I'm assuming there's some of these just naturally occurring things. When you dig a hole in the ground, right, you're going to find something. What's the number we're good with and not good with?
So a number, and this is I don't want to say relative, but EPA lists 4 picocuries per liter is the standard for mitigation, or where they.
Okay, that's a word I don't know. Picocurie?
Picocurie, yeah. So it's a unit of decay, more or less.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Without getting too in the weeds, so it's a unit of decay, but yeah. So EPA recommends at 4 picocuries in your within your home, you should have a mitigation system. But with that, there's no level that's actually safe of radiation.
0 is the number.
Yes, 0 is the number. So the closer you can get to 0, which could be impossible. You can get close. That's ideal.
Is this something that, and Jake, I'm looking at you, is this something that has always been there? We're just now able to find it? Or is it something new based on how we're building homes?
So it's always been here. The Pleistocene era, without getting too nerdy or in the weeds again, the glaciers moved in or they moved more or less, exposed things, dug things up, and brought those closer to the surface. So they've always been there. This has always been here. It's just it's more prevalent now.
You mentioned, Javen, just in the wintertime, we heat our homes, that sucks that gas up. This is a theory my father came up with. You know, you got to leave it to an 89-year-old guy who's grew up on a farm and has his theories, and this one isn't terrible. Radon is more prevalent now because we're better at building our homes. They're sealed tighter. Older homes were drafty.
There's actually some truth to that. Yeah, I mean, air exchange is one way of getting rid of it, but the radon remediation system, a simple fan, some PVC piping, can really bring your levels down. And every house in town probably has it if they don't have a remediation system. And just statistically speaking, at a level of 10, if everyone in town would put in a radon system in their homes, we could save 1,000 lives.
Really?
From getting cancer.
You talk about radiation mitigation systems in a home. What is it standard? Is it different for each home? What is that? Jake, I'm going to look to you with this one.
So yeah, a standard mitigation system would just be, if you installed it over your sump pump pit, more or less, you'd install a cover and then piping, and you'd go through either your foundation or your siding.
Sure.
And then
to get outside.
Yep. And then it gas off. You get it above your more or less your roof or your gutter line.
Okay.
And then it would gas off. So it'd pull continuously all that gas.
If a home, there are homes where the sump pump hole's outside. So if there is no sump pump hole in the house, is that better, worse, doesn't make a difference?
I would say it's kind of both. I would say you don't have that exposure, or that inlet, if you will,
Sure.
to coming into your house. But then again, you don't have a source you'd have to get literally a cement drill bit and drill into your foundation to create that, more or less.
Right.
So you can start pulling that out. So it's good and bad.
Right. So okay, so this is the $1 million question, and it's not just radon, but there's other chemicals, and we're going to get into testing here in a little bit. But at some point, someone down the road said, "I just found something I can't smell and I can't see." How did they find it? Right? Because it exists. I'm not sitting here playing the skeptic. I totally understand it exists. But for that person to find it the first time, Javen, I'm looking at you. What led them to find that? What was the history of that? Do you happen to know that?
It goes back to industrial mining. People doing underground mining.
Sure. The canary in the birdcage.
Yep, canary in the birdcage. So those miners were just having high incident rates of lung cancer. And digging into that, they were finding great levels of radon down where they were working. And so
Interesting.
put those things together, and this was back, in the 70s?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we've known about this for a long time. It's just a matter of trying to raise awareness and tell people, the great news is there's simple fixes.
Right.
Part of the fix is finding out what your number is. You guys talked about it at a council meeting a couple weeks ago. But there's an opportunity to get testing kits. Can you talk about that, Jake?
Yes, absolutely. So there are kits that you can get. You can purchase these kits at any hardware store or any big box store. But they're also for free. There are also I think there's 40 kits you can check out at the library. That you essentially just check out like a book. It's like a little meter. It's super simple. You hit the start button, it resets. You put it on your mantle or in your basement generally, your living space, and you set it and forget it. And it spits out a regular instant reading within a couple minutes, and then it gives you a long-term average as well, like a 7-day or 14-day average.
Really?
Yes.
And pretty consistent, pretty reliable numbers out of those readers?
Yes, absolutely. They're very accurate.
If someone does this in their home, contacts you guys at Health, do you guys come and follow up, or you're like, oh, that's the number, we go with that number?
We'd go with the number of the testing. If there's any concern about that, we'd retest and average those. One of the main things, if you do put in a remediation system too, is you want to retest and make sure that it's effective.
Sure. Make sure you're moving the number.
Right.
Yeah.
Moving that number. I put one in my house and started, again, like you were saying, old leaky home.
Yeah.
I had a little better air exchange, so mine was actually below 10. It was around
Okay.
9.
Yep.
But I was able to get that below 1.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Mine, same here. Yeah, I put a system in recently, and mine was 18 or 19, and I installed it, and within a day and a half, it was below 0.
So that's homes, right? That is as things have evolved, right? When it comes to building code now I realize lots of those are universal building codes, not specific to this area. But does radon come up in that? I know when purchasing a home, you can put that in of, oh, I tested for radon, it's up for this. You need to put a system in before I put an offer in. But as far as building code, is that in building code?
To my knowledge, it's not in building code. There's no regulation or enforcement of any radon regulation in the state. There is something coming through this legislative session that is going to propose to create a requirement to disclose radon levels prior
Sure.
to buying or selling homes.
I've run into that personally. We ended up not buying the home, not because of this, but we were looking at a home, looking to make an offer, and they actually had on their inspection document before we did it was like they disclosed it, just like, hey, our radon was this, and we're putting in a radon mitigation, so that will be taken care of by the time you purchase it. That was without. So that's kind of where my brain went was, oh, is this now required?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it's not uncommon to have a home have more than one radon system. Some people have levels up in the 80s.
Oh, really?
Close to 100. Yeah. So they might have to have multiple radon systems.
To have something that high, is just luck of the draw of where you happen to build?
Yeah, just luck of the draw. Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Just where the uranium was concentrated, more or less.
And can that uranium be concentrated like neighbor to neighbor, or are we talking this many? I guess I don't know how those pockets work.
I'd be lying if I said I did, honestly. But yeah, this thing kind of cropped up too. I know the question you had asked about the history of it and how it was just kind of identified back when, in the 1950s when, we were starting to mine uranium because of, Russia and all that kind of stuff.
Of course.
They did a lot of mining out in, Nevada, Wyoming, Utah, and they had all these, what do they call them? These piles, the tailing piles, more or less.
Sure. Yep.
And they used a lot of those tailing piles to kind of backfill for home, like for fill, more or less for
dirt
for home lots.
Right.
Yeah. And so they ended up building homes on these things, and that's kind of how this whole 4 picocurie per liter came into effect. Essentially, they brought in the Army Corps of Engineers and they said, "Hey, can you guys bring these down because the levels were astronomical."
Sure.
They were building it literally right on a pile
Of radioactive dirt.
Yes.
Yep.
So they came in and said that we can reduce it, we can't eliminate it.
Wow.
So that contributed to a significant amount, high levels. So just to bring it back, I was just saying that there's a lot of homes, I think, in pockets around here that have super high levels that would require more than one system that wouldn't be able to gas off with just one fan.
Sure. Right. Okay. Are there, you say it's in the soils everywhere. Are there parts like desert soils better? Like our soil here is a really thick, heavy farming soil in the Red River Valley. Is that hold it more, release more? I'm looking to the both of you and I'm waiting for one of you to answer this one. Is there a type of, you go to the desert and you're like, no, it's just the sand out here.
There's going to be different aspects to different soils. Like our heavy clay, might be less permeable, but it's really what is in there, how much is there, moisture content. You can get it in coming out of wells as well. You can have it off gassing in your shower from the groundwater as well.
I never thought of that. Makes sense. I looked at Javen when I said that. Where he grew up in Kittson County is some of the richest farmland in the world. Where I grew up in Kittson County is not. So, as the whole Lake Agassiz, how it worked, I grew up on the beach. One of the first jobs growing up was picking rock. Yeah, Javen knows about that.
We had one piece that had quite a bit of rocks.
One piece, yeah. I called that home. Call that home. Okay. So that's really good. So you can get radon testing kits at the library. Probably in every home in this, not just Grand Forks, in this region, right, in the Upper Midwest. Depending on how the home is built, our home has fireplaces, so there's open. You talk about getting air out.
Yes.
Right. Stuff like that. Interesting with the fireplaces in our house. If you turn one on, what it does to the one on the main floor, and just the physics behind that. It's interesting. So okay, really good info. I introduced you guys as we have public health here, but there's that perception. I think at a national level, I think COVID had a lot to do with that. When I hear public health, I hear of vaccines. I hear of, I think of medical.
Yes.
You guys are the scientists of public health. I talk about when you go to Grand Forks Public Health. I don't know how your layout is now, but you walk in the door, you take a right. If you want to go to nursing, you take a left. If you want to talk science. So a little bit. Could you guys and Javen, you're the old guy of the group, so I'm going to have you go first. You're my age, so you're the old guy of the group. I'm going to have you go first. Can you talk about some of the day-to-day stuff that you guys do? I know you're involved in restaurants. I know you're involved in all sorts of stuff. Can you talk about some of the day-to-day stuff you guys work with?
Yeah, sure, John. I'll start really big. I'd say a lot of people in public health are scientists, they're just looking at different aspects of things.
Fair enough. I shouldn't downgrade them. My fault. My fault.
No
all
worries.
my nursing friends, leave me alone.
So our focus is on the people's interactions with their environment. And so we're looking at all the ways that we can design our environments to the benefit of our health. And so the focus of that and the start of that is, let's treat our wastewater properly so we're not drinking our wastewater and
Sure.
perpetuating illness that way. And that's kind of the start of public health. So Public Health 101, let's have proper sewer systems. But it goes way beyond that. Making sure some of our programs is making sure our food is safe. So we have the food code, making sure restaurants, when they're dealing with bulk food, that they can cool that food properly and not allow other bacteria spores to grow and form after that food is cooked. So we inspect all the restaurants. We do swimming pools in town, making sure that water is chlorinated and going to disinfect everything that sloughs off our bodies and be a healthy place for us to exercise and enjoy. We also deal with a lot of city codes and nuisances and things, and just keeping, we need to get along with our neighbors when we live
Right.
so close with each other. We don't want rodents and pestilence in town.
Yeah, that's one of the first questions I ask when I get a phone call that may be public health related, mowing the lawn, garbage, and I'm like, have you talked to your neighbor yet? That's question one.
Great question.
And if they haven't, I'm like, do that, and then call me back. And generally, I don't get a call back. Because half the time I had no idea this was bothering you. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be a good neighbor. Sorry, my 2 cents. You talk about restaurant inspections, Jake. I'm looking at you. Lots of times with these there's you watch TV and it's, the restaurant's terrible, shut it down. Your goal isn't to shut down restaurants.
Absolutely
Your
not.
goal is to, for better term, educate. Right.
Yes, absolutely. There isn't there are enforcement pieces that unfortunately sometimes it has gotten to that, but no, that's not what we start at all. We always start with the educate before regulate, more or less, mentality. So we want to go in there and like I said, there's a 56-point inspection form that we are looking for. Not every single, we can't hit every single thing, every single inspection, but there are risk factors that we're focusing on.
Sure.
And I mean, if we spot something, we pull the manager or person in charge inside and we educate them. We identify it, and then we try to work through the problem so it doesn't happen again. So it's very much an educational role, but with that there is an enforcement piece to it if it doesn't get corrected.
Well, and I can see from the standpoint of temperature regulation, right? It has to cool down to this and warm up to this. Well, if they may not realize they're having an issue with their freezer or their cooler, or that you guys just found it. Hey, you're not getting to the right temp.
Yes.
It's not getting cold enough.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
I can see them appreciating that. You guys, I asked you guys to just answer some questions real quick before you came on. I found this interesting. I knew a little bit about you. I didn't know about you. You guys both come from a water background, a little bit.
Yes.
So Jake, you started with the city at the water plant.
I did 2016, and just to back up a little bit further, I was in the military. I started in 2009. I'm still in, but that was my first MOS, was water treatment. So
Interesting.
yep,
Okay.
I started from there. Came to water treatment plant when it was downtown.
It was downtown. Yeah.
And then I transitioned to the public health department.
So what work did you do at the water plant?
Basically, just water treatment. I wasn't quite.
You weren't quite certified up to a
an operator. I think I was up to the class 2 in
Yep.
North Dakota, but just because of staffing, I hadn't made
Correct.
the operator yet. So yeah, I just every 4 hours titrations. there's a million different there's a million different duties. So a lot of titrations, a lot of chemical balancing, a lot of maintenance on pieces, a lot of troubleshooting and problem solving. So
And with the new plant, I think hopefully there's, knock on wood, less troubleshooting and problems. that old plant had, we needed to replace it.
absolutely, yeah. There are more technologies out that treatment plant. So I mean, sometimes when you get more technology, more sophistication, it creates more problems.
Yeah, you got to figure that out.
Very nice though, very nice water treatment plant.
So you were testing clean water, Javen. You were wading out in ponds in Minnesota. You were involved in water quality as well, weren't you?
Yeah, well, not so much wading in ponds. I did go to school, kind of specializing in that geohydrology, groundwater stuff.
Sure.
And that brought me into working with Minnesota Department of Health. I had interned with them and carried on with them after college in the non-community public water supply unit. So we were going out to resorts and places that were on their own wells for groundwater, looking at their water systems and water treatment, making sure that it met the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Now, this one thing, I don't know if this has changed, but years ago, and maybe it's still the same, are you guys as public health, environmental health, are you still in charge of septic systems for the region, or has that since changed?
Yeah, we have 2 counties that have adopted a local code that I'll go out and do the septic inspections up there for the new systems. There's a couple bills going through the legislature.
Always are.
We'll see where things land with that, including that radon disclosure bill that's going through.
All right, yeah, okay. So beyond just City of Grand Forks Public Health, you guys get out in the county a little bit too.
Yeah, we'll service the 4 surrounding counties, so Walsh, Pembina, and Nelson Griggs. But as Javen alluded to, it's only Walsh and Pembina that have a local adopted code for septic.
Okay. Otherwise, they would fall back to a state code?
Yep, state plumbing code currently. Yep.
Currently, yep.
Grand Forks County is with the zoning code, so
Sure.
zoning administrator handles Grand Forks County.
Sure. All right. Okay, so this is, I don't know if you've caught any of the previous podcasts, try to have a little bit of fun. Let's not talk about work. So I'm going to ask this. Jake, I'm looking at you. Grand Forks kid, right?
Yes.
Grand Forks kid. We're a Rider house with my son. How about you?
Likewise.
Oh, you were?
Yep.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Is it Red River or Grand Forks Central?
Red River, yep.
And does that rivalry run as deep as I'm starting to see it in my house?
Yes, absolutely. Funny thing, or funny fact, is my sister went to Central, so there's always that.
Oh.
We always butt heads on that aspect.
You know, depending on what the school does with their boundary lines, we may run into that. I think my daughter's going to be in Red River before that actually gets adopted, but we'll be close. We have run into it in our house of my son having buddies through middle school, then go to Central, and they're still friends.
Yep.
It's just their conversations have changed of how much each other suck. It's an interesting one. Now, Javen, I'm looking over at you. There's the good school in Kittson County, and then there's Hallock. So even though I think they're combined now, I don't know. It's all different.
Yeah, it's quite a bit different from when we were there.
Well, and even when you were there, were Hallock and Kennedy together, or were they separate?
Yeah, I was going through. I did go to middle school in Kennedy. So,
You did?
Yep, that was part of the consolidation there for Kittson Central.
So I've got 3 siblings, 1 younger, 2 older. My 2 older were Lancaster Cardinals. I was a Kittson County North Cougar, and my younger brother was a North Star Jaguar, but I think his senior year they're now Bearcats?
Bearcats now.
Bearcats now.
I was there in the Wolfpack era.
In the Wolfpack era, yep. And it kind of funny is, as we're talking health a little bit, the president of Altru is Dr. Deere. I make jokes that I watched Dr. Deere kick the crap out of me in sports for 4 years. Quite an athlete, that Deere family.
That Deere family was, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time. Guys, thank you very much. Javen, thank you for coming on, talking about radon, talking about the work that you guys do in environmental health. Jake, you as well.
Thank you
I
very much.
appreciate that for all the work you guys do. And if you want to catch this episode or any other previous episodes of the City Chatter, the Grand Forks podcast, go to grandforksgov.com/podcast. We'll catch you next time.